In life, we all face challenges, knots of anger, ego, and confusion that leave us struggling for answers. But what if the key to solving these problems lies not in force, but in understanding? Join us as we explore a timeless story from Buddha, a simple lesson with the power to untangle life's greatest challenges and reveal the path to inner peace. One serene morning, the disciples and followers of Buddha gathered eagerly, waiting for his discourse. To their surprise, when Buddha arrived, he carried something unusual in his hand, a simple rope. Curiosity rippled through the crowd as they watched him take his seat in silence. Without a word, Buddha began tying knots in the rope. Slowly and deliberately, he tied 3 knots, holding the rope before him for all to see. Breaking the silence, Buddha asked, "I have tied 3 knots in this rope. Now tell me, is this still the same rope as it was before the knots were tied?" The disciples exchanged glances, pondering the question. Finally, one of them spoke. "This is a difficult question. From one perspective, it is the same rope. It hasn't fundamentally changed. Yet, from another view, it is different because now it has 3 knots, which it didn't have before. However, despite the change in its appearance, its essence remains the same." Buddha smiled, pleased with the thoughtful response. "Indeed," he said. He then continued, "Now watch closely as I try to untie these knots." Holding both ends of the rope, Buddha began pulling them away from each other, tightening the knots. As he did this, he asked, "What do you think? Can I untie the knots by pulling the rope like this?" The disciples quickly responded, "No! Pulling the rope this way will only tighten the knots further. It will make them even harder to untie." Buddha nodded and said, "Exactly. So tell me, what must be done to untie these knots?" One disciple answered, "To untie the knots, we need to carefully examine how they were tied. By understanding the way they were created, we can undo them." Buddha's face lit up with approval. "That is exactly what I wanted to hear," he said. "This rope represents the human mind and its struggles. People often come to me seeking solutions to their problems, but instead of asking why anger arises in them, they ask how to eliminate it. Instead of understanding the root of their ego, they ask how to rid themselves of it. Like the rope, even when tied in knots, its basic form remains unchanged. Similarly, the seeds of goodness within a person remain intact, no matter how entangled they become in difficulties. To resolve any problem, we must first look deeply at its cause. Just as the knots in the rope cannot be undone by force, human problems cannot be solved without understanding their origins. Remember, where there is life, there will be problems. And where there are problems, there will always be solutions. Seek the root cause, and the path to resolution will reveal itself. The disciples listened intently, their hearts filled with newfound clarity and wisdom. From that day onward, they resolved to seek understanding before action, knowing that clarity was the key to untying the knots in life. Life is full of knots, challenges, emotions, and struggles that often leave us feeling stuck. But as Buddha teaches us, the key to untying these knots lies not in force, but in understanding. By looking deeply into the roots of our problems, we can uncover the path to resolution and rediscover the goodness that remains within us. Remember, Where there are problems, there are always solutions. Seek clarity, embrace mindfulness, and let wisdom guide you on your journey to peace. One day, Buddha and his disciples were walking through a quiet village. The air was calm, and the gentle sounds of daily life surrounded them. As they walked, they passed a potter's workshop. The rhythmic sound of the potter's wheel turning caught Buddha's attention, and he stopped. Intrigued by Buddha's pause, the disciples halted as well. They saw a potter sitting at his wheel, skillfully shaping a lump of clay. The workshop was humble, with tools and pieces of clay scattered about, but there was something mesmerizing about the way the potter worked. For a while, Buddha observed silently, his gaze fixed on the potter. The disciples, however, grew restless. One of them finally broke the silence and asked, "Master, why are we standing here, watching a potter at work? What could this possibly have to do with enlightenment?" Buddha turned to his disciples and with a gentle smile replied, "Observe carefully. There is much to learn here." The disciples turned their attention to the potter. They watched as he took a lump of clay, rough, uneven, and full of imperfections. With care and precision, the potter began kneading it, pressing it with his hands to remove stones and impurities. One disciple remarked, "The clay resists him. It doesn't seem easy." Buddha nodded. "Yes, much like our own minds, but look at his patience and dedication." The potter continued, working the clay tirelessly until it became soft and pliable. Then he placed it on the wheel and began to shape it. Slowly, as the wheel turned, the lump transformed under his skilled hands. What once was rough and shapeless began to take the form of a pot, smooth, symmetrical, and purposeful. When the potter finished, he set the pot aside to dry and began preparing another lump of clay. Turning to his disciples, Buddha finally spoke. "Did you see how the potter worked with the clay? This process is a reflection of your journey toward enlightenment. You are like that lump of clay, full of potential, yet burdened with impurities like anger, greed, ignorance, and anxiety. To transform yourself, you must first be willing to identify and remove these imperfections. This requires effort and self-reflection." The disciples listened intently as Buddha continued, "Notice how the clay resisted at first, just as our minds resist change. It is uncomfortable to confront our flaws, but perseverance is key. With patience, the potter softened the clay and made it pliable. Similarly, you must soften your heart and mind through practice, mindfulness, and dedication." Buddha gestured towards the finished pot and said, "Only after the clay was cleansed and softened could it be shaped into something beautiful and useful. Likewise, once you've removed your inner impurities, you can begin to shape yourself into the person you aspire to be, a person of wisdom, compassion, and strength. Your transformation may inspire others, just as a perfect pot serves others." One disciple asked, "Master, the potter's work seemed slow and demanding. Is this process of self-improvement also so difficult?" Buddha smiled kindly. "Indeed, it is a slow process, but it is worth every moment. Transformation is not a destination, it is a journey. The path to enlightenment requires patience, effort, and the willingness to endure challenges. The potter's dedication to shaping clay is the same dedication you must show towards shaping your character. The disciples stood in silence, reflecting on Buddha's words. The lesson was clear. Self-improvement is not immediate, nor is it easy. But through mindfulness, persistence, and patience, anyone can overcome their flaws and discover their true potential. As they resumed their journey, the rhythmic sound of the potter's wheel lingered in the air, a gentle reminder of the lesson they had learned that day. Self-improvement is a journey that demands patience, perseverance, and the willingness to confront and remove inner imperfections. Transformation may be slow, but with effort, it leads to enlightenment and inspires others along the way.